I'm sure if my guys listen to this after I record it, they like to make fun of me when it comes to shooting. All of my shooting growing up, like my grandmother ran a campground, and like when the season was over, we'd go back to the burn pile and just shoot the crap that people left there. Like that's fun shooting to me.
Premium performance doesn't have to come with a premium price tag. The Voodoo X series combines trusted EOTech quality with the features shooters rely on most. Adjustable parallax for clarity at any distance, an illuminated reticle for all lighting conditions, and magnification ranges for every scenario. Whether you're chasing big game or ringing steel, this lineup can do it all. The Voodoo X series from EOTech, precision within reach. To everybody that is watching and listening right now, we are with Dustin from Faxon Firearms. So Dustin, welcome to Whiskey and Windage. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. You know, we got our lines crossed a couple weeks ago, which was
Yeah.
my fault, Christmas, your fault, all the things.
Yeah.
We made it work and we
Yeah.
got it redone. And so let's go ahead and get it started. So for the people who know the name, but maybe not the details, talk about who Faxon Firearms is and what, what their mantra, what the mantra is for the company. Like, what do you aim to do for the shooter?
Yeah, good question. So at Faxon Firearms, we are family owned and operated. The Faxon family has been in the machining and engineering industry since the 1970s. They've always been based out of Greater Cincinnati, Ohio. But when I started with the company in 2019, they were in their second facility. They started in a little 4,000 square foot shop in North Side Cincinnati, and then moved up to Forest Park in the 90s. And honestly, they got their biggest kind of heydays with automotive OEM. So they did stuff for Ford and Chrysler and GM and everything, and then all that stuff started to go offshore. And so they did a little bit in oil and gas. They did some aerospace, and then predominantly defense work. So they do a lot of ordnance work. And because of that transition, around 2012 or so, really they were looking to keep the machines going. And the automotive had moved offshore, and they were still kind of sinking their teeth into the defense work. And so they decided to get into the firearms industry because, ironically enough, when they bought their first building in '78, they bought it off of a company called Weichelt Arms, and they used to make muzzle loader barrels. And the Faxon's father was like, we'll give you this price as long as you leave your Rolodex and that gun drill. And the idea was, if it all goes to hell in a handbasket, you could at least drill some gun barrels. And so ironically, 40 some years later, they started doing that. But it started with the advent of our patented weapon system, the Arak 21. That's what we came to market with. And because of the Arak, we had to learn how to make barrels. So instead of choosing to spend a bunch of money on people making prototype barrels for us in the testing and evaluation stage, we had to learn how to make our own barrels. So that's because the Arak barrel, it's not quite an AK barrel, it's not quite an AR barrel. And Bob Faxon, our founder, will tell you, if he was on this show, those first ones, they were terrible. They didn't shoot. They were not accurate. You had to learn all of the kind of the black magic that goes into it. But as far as our motto and mantra, you'll see two trademarks from us. One is quality, innovation, and service, and that's been since the beginning. And about a year or so after I started, I kept hearing Bob say how what he does is about fellowship. The business is about people, on the employer side, and then on the front facing side, there's a community behind it. And so we trademarked the phrase, the fellowship of firearms. And so it's on all of our packaging, it's on our website. And we really do believe that the firearms industry as you know, like we were cutting it up before we started rolling, talking about people we've met and people we've known, and the industry seems big, but you're about 6 degrees of separation from everyone, and that includes a lot of end consumers. So
Yeah.
yeah, really, what you're getting from us is American manufacturing, family-owned business, lifetime guarantees on products. It's really an old school Americana. Bootstrap type of family business. And, when I got into it, it wasn't so much about finding a gun company to be a part of. I just had a heart for American manufacturing.
Right.
And that was just kind of the cherry on top, that it happened to be, in the firearms industry.
Man, so you guys are coming up on what, 50 years just in a few 3 or 4 years, 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, yeah. So the firearms brand is 14 years this year, and then yeah, I mean they're 40 some years. But by the way we put it, I think Bob just turned 60, and when he and his brother Barry took over the machining business, it was in the early 80s because their eldest brother who started it had passed away in an accident, and so they were teenagers, running the thing. They both told me about, working late at night, coming into school late, falling asleep during class, and going back and running machines. And then they built that into what it is now. And so, Faxon Machining, our original parent company, they do tons of ordnance work for the Air Force. They do the next gen attack weapon for the Air Force. They got in on a lot of giant ordnance work, basically. And then some of that is actually bled over to us. So if you were to ever come visit the shop, you would not only see our firearms products, but you would see some of the stuff that Faxon Firearms proper does for the defense sector as well.
Huh, cool.
That's rad. I think it's
Mhm.
really cool. In our adventure here at Whiskey and Wittage, we do have the pleasure of having lots of guests and lots of companies that we get to learn a lot more about. And it seems like the deeper that we dive into the firearms industry, the more that we find that it as an industry is really there's a lot of tight knit family operated companies that you wouldn't guess. Like you see these names and it's hard to associate the people that are behind all of these different names, but a lot of them are family run businesses that have been manufacturing in the country for a very long time, maybe not necessarily guns or gun parts, but have been making parts for the defense sector or aerospace, and have moved into that when we saw the rise of the great rise, or the renaissance of the AR-15 and modular
Mhm.
rifle markets. So that's really cool that you guys are still, just a mom and pop shop, even though you're out there
So,
doing big stuff in the world.
yeah, yeah, just we like to joke, and the management team, we all had stuff to, we had like 5 minutes at the Christmas party or whatever to talk. And one of the things I tell the shop guys is, because me and my guys get to go, around and see customers and do the
Yeah.
shows and do interviews and do all this sort of stuff. And the shop guys don't really get to see that. And so we had actually pre-set our SHOT Show booth up where we were having our company meal, which is, it's right on the shop floor. We
Rad.
cater it in, but we just bring tables in and stuff. And that was a distinct point. We wanted to keep it up there so the guys got to see the booth. And I told them, I was like, guys, if you were to go on the road with us, it would be hard to tell a lot of folks that it's just a bunch of hillbillies from Southwest Ohio, making this stuff. And but it is true. It is true. And I think that it hopefully leads through in our branding and how we present ourselves. But you're right. There's a lot of these that are very close knit and very connected. They're doing work for each other or whatever. It's not obviously there's a rivalry and a lot of
Yeah.
things that we do, but at the same time, it's good to see people succeed, because the ships rise with the tide together, and so
Yeah.
we've seen ups and downs, pre and post pandemic, and market habits change and buying habits change, and so it's a wild ride. But like I said, we to our guys, we're not selling food, love, or shelter out here. This is
Yeah.
still a lot of luxury items, and so the fact that there are people day in and day out and year after year who make the decision to outfit themselves, whether it's for duty use, we outfit a lot of law enforcement agencies, or folks for hunting, or for special operations, or everyday carry, whatever it may be. The fact that people are, spending their hard-earned money on something that says Faxon on it is a big deal to us.
Amen. Well, that kind of leads us right into our first segment, Dustin. We like to do a fun segment. It's called Ask AI. So we ask AI about our guests and the company that they work for. This week's Ask AI is brought to us by our friends over at Wheeler Tools. Don't forget to use code WHISKEY10 at checkout and save a little bit of cash.
When precision matters, trust the tool that delivers. The Wheeler Pro Series 100-piece fat wrench kit brings unmatched control to your bench. With torque you can trust and 100 purpose-built bits, it's the all-in-one answer for gunsmiths, builders, and perfectionists. Whether you're mounting optics or dialing in fine details, this kit hits every mark. Clean, confident, repeatable. No guesswork, no strip screws. Just pro-level performance in your hands. Upgrade your bench with Wheeler Tools.
So we asked AI who Faxon Firearms is, and here's the response.
Okay.
It says Faxon Firearms is a family-owned American firearms manufacturer based in Cincinnati, Ohio. Founded in 2012, rooted in the precision machining expertise of Faxon Machining, established in 1978. The company brings high-quality engineering to the shooting sports market, designing firearms, barrels, and components that emphasize performance, durability, and innovation. Known for blending traditional craftsmanship with modern manufacturing, Faxon serves competitive shooters, hunters, law enforcement, and firearms enthusiasts with a broad lineup of products built to last and passed down through generations. Their commitment to precision and reliability has made them a respected name in the firearms market. Some of their top products that they're known for: Arak 21 platform, AR-15 and AR-10 barrels, Bolt Carrier Group's complete uppers and firearms, miscellaneous parts and accessories like gas blocks, gas tubes, muzzle brakes, and receiver sets.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hell yeah.
Elon must have gotten my note. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
It does a pretty good job. It does a pretty good job
Yeah.
in the synopsis. Most people are like, can I get that from my website, or did it come directly from my website? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll send it over to you. No big win.
Perfect.
So let's jump into the first product. We'll just talk about barrels. That's how
Sure.
I was first introduced to you guys. Um, I personally own, I think, 5 or 6 of your barrels. You know, it seems like everywhere you go, in the firearms space, Faxon is an option. You guys seem to be everywhere. What makes, without, beating up the other guys, you said it's all
Sure.
competition. What
Yeah.
makes barrel and your process different from everyone else?
Good question. Well, so the tides have kind of shifted in the last few years in the machining space when it comes to barrel manufacturing. So actually, when I first started at Faxon, we still had a big sign out front that said deep hole drilling specialists. Okay, so really, there's a lot of black magic and gypsy voodoo, as people would say when they're first getting into it for the drilling side, because there are companies that they may turn their own barrels. They may profile them. They may even do outside milling or things like that, but not everybody drills. So drilling is a key point. So all of our barrels start as 20-foot bars in stock. So if you were to come to our shop, it's just, there's a big loading dock bay door, and the bars of stock are dropped right on the floor there. So first is obviously material selection. So most of our barrels are going to be 4150 CMB or 416R stainless. And then we do our process as such. It's drill, ream, rifle, then stress relieving. And a key component of that is we do the stress relieving in-house. So most of our stuff, or 99% of our stuff, is button rifled. And button rifling is a cold forging process. So people always ask, well, is it cold hammer forge? Is it cut rifling? It is a cold forging process. You're not really cutting, and you're not applying heat to the material to give it grooves, right? So you're actually taking generally a carbide bit on a long stick, and it looks like a little tiny reverse drill bit, and you're pulling it through. So you're not cutting things away, you're not chiseling, you're not doing anything of that nature, you're not etching. You're literally making the material form to that button, right? So that's how you get your twist rate. That's how you get your traditional 6 groove or your 5R rifling or whatever it is that you may ask for. So when you do that, you're applying a lot of stress to the material itself.
Yeah.
So it has to be stress relieved. So you could do that in a couple of ways. You could do that with cold, or you could do it with heat, and we do it with heat. And so they're nitrogen-based stress relieving ovens. We have 2 ovens. I think we could throw 300 barrels in them at a time. And so they go in, and it basically takes a whole shift. So it depends on how or what the material is, what your thickness is, and just all the material content. And then it goes into those stress relieving ovens, and then they have to rest after that, and then they go to turning operations. So after that, they'll go to a qualifying op. Anytime that you're pulling or drilling through, especially a longer piece, you're going to have deflection. It's going to want to deflect at one of the ends. And so we do a qualifying pass. And actually, we leave extra meat on our blanks on either side, and then we'll chop those to true it. And then you'll do a qualifying pass, and it brings everything back to nominal. And then all of ours are air gauge checked as well. So at drill ream rifle, in a qualifying and a couple other spots, we use an air gauge. If you've ever seen like an old 1980s equalizer, the blinking lights, that's kind of what this thing looks like, but there's a hose in there, and it's a non-contact way of testing deflection. And then we could also check it in various ways with like a CMM or what have you, but those are some of the in-process things that we do. So a lot of people could turn. And in manufacturing, you generally have drills, well, you have saws too, but you have saws, you have drills, you have lathes, you have mills. And that's basically it. Now there's different forms of them, how many axis, new stuff like mill turn machines or what have you. But either you're cutting something, you're drilling something, or you're turning something around to make a shape. And so it's very important that the initial blank stays as nominal as possible with that bore, and that stress relieving is a big part. So then when we get to the end of it, because we do all of this in-house, when we get to the end of that hard manufacturing line, one thing that we brought with us from our defense experience is magnetic particle inspection. So in manufacturing, you generally have what's called an AQL. So it's like 1 in however many units at various operations have to be checked, by the quality department. So not just an end process at the machine, but taken over into the quality department to make sure that everything's staying tight. Mag particle for us is a 100% check. So it's not 1 in 10, it's not 1 in 50. It's literally every single one. What magnetic particle inspection lets us do, there's a couple of types. There's dry MPI and there's wet MPI. We do wet MPI. Basically, you're charging the barrel between 2 probes, and you're covering it with a ferritic material. So there's basically like this slushy stuff that has like iron particles in it. And with the black light over top, these guys who are operators for mag particle have to go through hours and hours and hours of training and apprenticeship hours and testing, and there's multiple levels to it. But anyway, they're able to identify by the cooling of that material if there's any seams, folds, cracks, or inclusions in the material itself. If one of those pops hot, it gets pulled off, and the rest of the lot can go as long as it passed. So if it's bad, you pull it. And then if we do see a routine, if we're seeing, hey, like this lot or this whatever, it seems to have a lot popping, we obviously will go back to our steel supplier. They'll go back to the mill. We've done more blockage tests with things to see, hey, is this bad? Is this good? So I guess that's a very long way of saying a lot of people do a lot of really good things. We are very intent about our stress relieving. We're very intent about the mag particle inspection. The mag particle inspection, yes, is going to help with accuracy because you're showing that there's no weird stress in the material, but it's also about safety. You'd be amazed at how many times you see people that They're just running and gunning out at the range, and they have a squib and they don't know. And they just shoot through. And if that barrel pulls an Elmer Fudd, we have a problem. But with having that MPI and doing really well stress relieving, we've seen barrels come back, and we've had stuff where people are like, I had no idea, I was just running hot, but like, I'm safe. My
Yeah.
gun's okay, like my barrel's okay, or not the barrel, but my health, my face is okay, stuff like that. So that's a very big part of it for us. But it's also a continual improvement thing. I
Yeah.
think next month we have a new CMM hitting our quality floor. We just are going through a whole new gauging revamp in our chambering department, which is a big deal. So some of it's about agility on the shop floor, being able to make things quicker and get it through quicker. But it's also keeping up, with quality standards and making sure that no matter who we have running the machine, that you're going to get a quality part each and every time.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Dustin, tell the folks a little bit about what calibers and platforms that your barrels cover.
Yeah,
What configurations are most popular right now and why? That type.
yeah. So all of your bread and butter stuff we do, so all your 5.56s and your 9 mils and so on. We do 6 ARC. Actually, we do all the ARC cartridges. Hornady's been lovely enough to have us on their last few launches and things that dip into our realms. Um, Obviously, we were the first people to successfully do button rifled 8.6 blackout barrels. Um, let's see, but pretty much all your standard fare for AR-15 and AR-10. And then bolt action, we do pretty much all your popular AR-10 cartridges. We do have some more coming out this year. We just launched barrels for bolt action in 6 GT and 6 Creed as well.
Nice.
And those will have some barreled action SKUs on the catalog for us this year. So those will be some of the things we're showing off at SHOT Show. We've done other things. We've done like 40 and 45 PCC. We do make a 10 mil PCC barrel. We do 400 Legend. So, I mean, really, it's whatever the market dictates. But like we used to do 40 and 45, and then like nobody was buying them anymore. So we had
Yeah.
to cut them. There was nothing wrong with them. And then same thing, like I think we used to do RPR barrels in the past. We've done a bunch of different stuff. So it really just depends on the market. There for a while, and then in being in charge of sales and marketing, I have to do the rules with Jay, our product director, going, okay, are we cutting something this year? What are we going to cut, if anything at all? And I remember a couple of years ago, I told all the dealers, I was like, okay, one last run of 224 Valkyrie, and that's it. Like we're not going to do it anymore. Like if you, I was like, if you want to order a run of 100, I'll make them for you, but I can't just catalog these things. They're just not selling anymore. And what was really interesting, you talk about things that are popular or whatever. We were pretty early on 6 ARC. This is before we got, kind of tighter with Hornady. But if you remember, 6 ARC launched in like late 2019. And then the pandemic happened and nobody gave a crap.
Yep.
It was all, I mean, our catalog is so large, especially now. But at that time, it was like we could make the same 10 SKUs over and over again and have a banner year. Everybody wanted 16-inch 5.56 and 9 mil PCC. That was it.
Mhm.
And so 6ARC kind of took a back seat. And so when we did come out with our own, and they started to catch on, we had a 12.5, a 16, I think a 20, and a 22 or something. And then the 12.5s, like 2-3 years ago, they're just dogs. Like nobody's buying them. And I was like, all right, I'm going to cut these, clearance them out. And I swear to you, in the last 18 months, the amount of people who have asked about the 12.5 6 ARC barrel has been insane. So we put it back on the catalog. We brought it back. So what we're seeing right now is probably no surprise to you guys, but it's short stuff. It's short subsonic suppressed optimized barrels. That's generally what we're seeing. During the last pistol brace ban, when that hit, we actually didn't know how it was going to go. We gave all of our dealers an emergency map suspension to clear their inventory on any barrels under 16 inches because we didn't know how that ruling was going to go. And we didn't want us or our dealership partners to be stuck with dead inventory. So while we were waiting for that to come down, we gave them this map suspension, and it has not slowed down since then. If anything, it's been, I know obviously race fans know more, but we really thought that could be, something that really messed with it. But as suppressors become more prevalent and SBRs are now a $0 fee on that tax stamp, it's just more and more. And so and even with like 300 blackout, I think this year it finally got to the point that it's almost 1-to-1, 5.56 barrels to 300 blackout barrels that we sell. Your skew proliferation is different, but it's those short, faster twist, subsonic suppressed kind of optimized barrels are kind of the game.
So I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to the average user and the term precision barrel, what's one misconception the average shooter has about what a precision barrel really is?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions in general in barrels. But I wouldn't say that any of them are more bad or more good. It's just a general misconception. So, for example, it could be even an aesthetic look of a barrel. So, my first job show with the company, we do have some options of like PVD pistol barrels, right? That are like crazy colors. They'll be gold, or we call it chameleon, the neochromatic rainbow ones.
The rainbow one?
Yeah, the rainbow ones. Yeah. And so I remember it, and I'm so green, and I'm standing at the booth, and I remember, these guys come up like, "Oh, that's fairy shit." I'm like, okay, but they sell out every month, and so like some of it, it's just tastes and preferences. But then when you go down to the actual like machining or weight or processes that you apply on the barrels. So there's a lot of people that still think that, Magfoss Chrome line is the end all be all for everything because it's been mil spec for a long time. And I get it. And there are some certain applications where chrome lining is, it's what you want. Most general everyday users in the United States, probably not in need. And frankly, with chrome lining, you are now putting your accuracy in the hands of a plater. So you are so like this is something we actually have to drill and rifle a little differently when we make chrome line barrels, because you have to accommodate the etching and then application of another surface into your barrel bore.
Yeah.
So for example, a really good raw barrel is going to be better than a so-so chrome line barrel. And the same thing's true like on when we do nitriding. So most of our barrels, most of the catalog is salt path nitride. We do have chrome line Magfoss. We do have the raw barrels, stainless barrels. But we really like nitride because you're not putting, if anything at all, onto the surface of the bore, but it's also not a line of sight coating, right? You're actually getting into the chamber, you're getting into the rifling, you're getting into the actual bore of the barrel. And it adds really good lubricity characteristics, and it adds really good corrosion resistance characteristics to the barrel. So that would be one misconception that I see, is just like being so stuck on one. There's a key for every lock, an ass for every seat, and it depends on what you're looking for. The same thing is true about, like I said, like the short, fast twist subsonic barrels right now. Those are great for suppressed use. If you want to have a barrel that is truly optimized for suppressed subsonic use, it's not necessarily going to be optimized for supersonic use. And your different loads and your different cartridges, as the industry gets more niche and gets more boutique, those are things that people have to take into consideration. If you were to look at some of our oldest barrel SKUs, kind of our MO, really up until around the time we started doing things like 8.6 and 6 Arc, was to make the barrels accept just about anything that people would throw in them, right? Reasonable accuracy, but seriously, going from match loads to Bubba's bucket of
Yeah.
bullets, like whatever it's going to be. So things like twist rates and gas port sizes and gas system lengths, they were all tuned to like a general denominator. And then it was basically on us that the machining had to be good enough that it would hold respectable accuracy with any one of those loads. But as we got into more boutique items, that's out the window, right? Like with 8.6 Blackout, we do the 1 in 3 twists. Like you can't just throw any projectile in there. You can't just throw any cartridge or load in there. So those are things that, I think people need to understand. I think maybe more of a simple one would be people not understanding what stainless steel is. There's no true stainless that's actually stainless. There's stainlesses that are more that are less likely to corrode and rust, but they still have, characteristics that go along with them.
Yes.
So those are some things. And the same thing too with rifling methods. People really get really excited about certain rifling methods, whether it's ECN, whether it's cat rifling, whether it's cold hammer forging, button rifling, whatever. The kind of the dirty little secret in the industry is that like cold hammer forging has like a premium price on it generally. It's actually the cheapest way to make a barrel. What gets you is the machine is ridiculously expensive, and they don't make very many of them. And so, but when you, like I said at the beginning, button rifling is technically a cold forging process as well. So it really just depends on who you're dealing with and who you're talking to. And at the end of the day, I go, put the barrel in. If it doesn't work to your liking, send it back. It's pretty simple. For us, like we'll stand by. We're not going to put anything out there that we don't think is accurate or safe. But a general common denominator for me is it really depends on the cartridge itself. Some cartridges are not made to be these highly precision cartridges at 500 or 1,000 yards. So we experience that with 8.6 in a big way. If you're going 500 or 1,000 yards with 8.6, you should be very happy with, a couple inch groove. So you know what I mean? Like it's not
7.62 by 3.9, like.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that it's like, and then also too, there's a lot more that goes into it. And listen, there are some great people who we've had stuff slip out for sure. There's been stuff where people get a hold of us, hey, this isn't right, this isn't working right. I tell my guys, because I manage customer service as well, whatever you got to do to make it right with the customer, and I give them a cash level. I said, just make it right. We don't care. We'll take it back and then we'll evaluate it. And if they pulled a fleece over our eyes and they were just looking for a new barrel, so be it. But most of the time they'll come back and there's a couple of things we'll check, but we'll walk people through their accuracy problems as well. Hey, is it clean? Check your alignment. Do you have the barrel fully seated? All that sort of stuff. So, but precision barrel, to me, if you're buying it from a reputable manufacturer, there should be some consistency, across the board. But I would say there's so much parity in the market, and there's also so many different types of cartridges and so many different types of setups that people are trying anymore. That precision on one length of barrel for one cartridge is probably not going to be the same as it is for another length of barrel of another cartridge in another setup.
Amen. Dustin, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Your workspace matters, and the Tipton Best Gun Vise 360 doesn't play around. Built for serious shooters, this vise locks down rifles, shotguns, and ARs with zero movement and full control. Tool-free adjustments, rock-solid clamping, and a 360-degree rotating cradle give you access from every angle. No shortcuts, no compromises. Whether you're building, cleaning, or dialing in, this vise was made to keep up. Tipton Best Gun Vise 360. Built to hold, built to work.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Whiskey and Windage. Dustin from Faxon, we're going to jump right into it. We've touched up on Faxon barrels just a bit. I also want to hear about Faxon's bolt carrier groups. They have a strong reputation, what materials and coatings are you guys using without getting into anything too proprietary, but like what
Sure.
makes a Faxon bolt carrier group a Faxon BCG?
Yeah, good question. So Um, we really just start with quality materials, just like you do in most anything in precision manufacturing. We use a 9310 tool steel bolt. All of our carriers, regardless of if you got a PVD one or one of our new chrome ones, they all go through what's called a super finishing process, which is kind of like a electromechanical microabrasion process.
Hmm.
This is probably where we get most of our um, uh, positive reviews from. So they're incredibly slick. And so, and what also helps is that they don't just like drink lubricant, so they last a good long time. They're easy to clean. So we'll do those in either a salt bath nitride or a PVD. So if you get like the gold ones or the chameleon ones, the gold and the chameleon are actually the same coating, by the way. They're both just a physical vapor deposition. It's a high strength tool coating. Again, same idea as nitride, just a different flavor of it. It's all about lubricity, dry lubricity, and then surface wear characteristics. Let's see, they're all mag particle inspected, just like we do our barrels. They're shot peened to mil spec, which also helps with some surface hardness. We do chamfering on the back of the lugs for more reliable cycling. We use S7 extractors. Let's see, everything except I think the AR10, which I don't know if you'd want to do this with an AR10, are full auto compatible. And then we use grade 8 fasteners on our gas keys. But yeah, that's really about it. Is the full staking, kind of the upgrading of the materials. I'm going to say that most old school like mil spec carriers, and I may be getting the name wrong, but I believe it was like a Carpenter 140 or something like that. So
Yeah.
9310 steel bolt is just an upgrade of that material. Um, but yeah, I mean, really, with that one, it's just about really, I think the super finishing and the upgrading of the materials. Obviously, the MPI is important as well. This year, actually, we kind of snuck launched them in Q4, but we added a couple of completely chromed carriers as well to the SKU list. We were getting some feedback, especially from dealers that were just like, hey, these like nickel boron and kind of raw stainless looking carriers are starting to sell for us. And we looked at it, and our engineers didn't love the characteristics of nickel boron in comparison to like nitriding and stuff we currently have. And so we didn't want it to just be an aesthetic treatment. So
Mhm.
we did decide to do a true hard chrome on them. And so we're not only chroming the carrier, but we're also chroming the gas key. We're chroming the bolt itself.
Wow. Right on.
And those are still super finished underneath as well. So those are some of the pieces. And then we do have sell a fair share of our gunner lightweight carriers as well. And that was probably one of my first things that I remember being really impressed with when I started at Faxon. We actually took to SHOT Show there was a dealer of ours that's pretty close to the shop. They had one of our ions, which is one of our sub 5 pound
Mhm.
5.56s.
Mhm.
And people would always ask, how does the pencil barrel hold up, and how does the lightweight carrier hold up? And so we took, I think at that time, that gun had 25,000 rounds through it
Wow.
at a rental range, by the way. So everybody's maybe good, maybe not good.
Dumping on
So,
it. No, they're beating the
yeah,
brakes off of that
yeah.
real
And
air.
we showed it. We hung it on the wall. We hung it on the wall. Here it is after 25,000 rounds. And every once in a while we might need to send like a bolt refresh kit out to them or something. But the materials themselves, will hold up just fine. So yeah, that's kind of the ins and outs of the bolt carriers. We do have a couple ideas we're kicking around, looking to see if some things are patentable for gas key sealing,
Mm.
and some other stuff that's kind of a back burner project that we've been working on. But we've been very pleased with how our bolt carriers perform and what the general public thinks of them.
So, kind of going to rewind back just a hair and
Yeah.
go back to the barrels, but then also play into the bolt carrier groups. Um, we've touched on a lot of these newer cartridges, um, whether they're Sammy spec or not. We're just going to call them boutique.
Yeah.
Um, how important is it to properly pair in this day and age with suppressors as well, the proper gas system tuning with your barrel and bolt carrier group? When you mentioned, when we were talking earlier about people shooting
Hmm.
and the the end result's gonna be different shooting subsonic through your short barrel versus supersonic. It always makes me cringe because a lot of people, you know, when they first get into it, and I get it, you don't have a lot of money to put out there on this thing, and so you're gonna try to buy the multi-purpose rifle,
Yep.
but subsonic, in my opinion, subsonic is its own caliber, and everything is built and set up for that rifle for subsonic or supersonic. Because
Hmm.
what I notice is when I shoot something with, subsonic and I get a good zero, and then I shoot super, there's 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 an impact shift. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. And so, taking all that out of the equation and saying, "Hey, I'm just gonna build," whether it be for 8.6 or 338 arc or 6 arc or 5.56, how important is it to pick and choose the right components? Not and this has nothing to do with brand, just
Sure.
proper system, pairings.
Yeah, good question. Well, I'll tell you this off the bat, and I'm sure it doesn't take long on Reddit to figure this out about us, but we do have a bit of a tendency for overgassing our barrels a little bit,
Yeah.
and that is on purpose. It
And
is a
Reddit
lot.
s
Yeah, yeah,
no, no.
yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, yeah, they might have something to say. Um, but honestly, our thought has always been you could always back it off, right? You could always take your adjustable gas block and you could back it off, and we do try as much as possible, when possible, to make sure that the barrels will cycle a regular build, both subsonic and super. Now your POI shifts and all that sort of stuff will take that out, but as far as like reliably cycling, we do the best we can, without getting to the point that it's ridiculous. Because for example, when we were doing 338 arc with Hornady, um, before we dialed a couple other things in, I mean, we're going to the range and we're literally like just drilling the gas block or the gas part over and over and over and over. But at some point, you get a diminishing rate of return, right? So you can only get as big
Right.
as the gas port and your gas block and your gas tube. Number one. Number two, you go too big, you could actually cause projectile deformation. You start risking the chance of rollovers and burrs and all this sort of junk interfering with your rifling. So we do our best to try to make sure that, especially things in that mid, 14 to 17 ish inches or whatever, shoot, subs or will cycle subs and supers. But you have so many different types of loads now, and a lot of guys loading their own stuff, and so that does become difficult. One of the ways we kind of try to cure that, like I said, is opening up the gas maybe just a scotch more than it needs to be, so people could back it off. Because the other thing people need to remember is it's not just your carrier and your barrel; it's your whole recoil system. It's
Yeah.
it's your
Gas
upper
and
the bumper
spring
weight.
and weight.
It's yeah. There's so much more that goes into it, and then even to whether you're this may sound ridiculous, but we have two different ways that we test, like live fire test. You're on the shoulder, and then we also have a bullet trap that basically puts the gun in a ransom rest. And this
Mhm.
is just a safety kind of function check for our assembly guys. And, there are times where we've done some like subsonic things that, fired fine in that ransom rest in the trap. You put it on your shoulder, it's not cycling, right?
Mm.
Mm.
It's just that much of a force change, that could send you over the edge. So yeah, I think it's very important that people are mindful of the whole build. when they do these things. We came out with our own patented adjustable gas blocks last year that we think help people really dial in. You get basically like 15 degrees of adjustment from all the way open to all the way closed. And we keep the mechanism outside of the carbon path. So that way it doesn't get fouled up or gummed up. So most will use like a like a set screw or a bleed off valve. But if you don't clean them pretty regularly, they could get gummed up and lose their adjustment. So we try to dial it in with our parts, as much as we can. And you'll actually see it this year on the catalog. And if you guys stop by the booth at SHOT, we're really we're kind of redoing our whole AR-15 and complete uppers lineup. And with that, we have in the upper space, people get options. You could either get a complete upper, a barreled upper, right? One and the same caliber, length, whatever. And then you could either get that standard or suppressor ready. And so what we'll do is on the suppressor ready versions is we have our new Plan B compatible muzzle devices that don't take crush washers or shims, and they're Plan B to HUD compatible. And then they'll come with the adjustable gas block. And this is a very important thing. If necessary for the cartridge, a lightweight carrier. Not everything you don't want to put a lightweight carrier on everything, unless you're adjusting your buffer setup and your load setup and your suppressor setup to also match it. So yeah, I think it's important, even outside of accuracy, just for consistency and cycling and feeding, is probably one of the bigger things for us.
I mean, Dustin, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the curious weapon, and I don't know. Do you call it the Arak? Is it ARAK? It's Arak 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a pretty unique platform in that, and admittedly, I mean, I'm a bit of an AK guy.
Yeah.
I surprisingly, I do know a thing or two about ARs as well, but it is kind of a 50-50 blend between the two platforms.
Yeah.
Long or a piston system like an AK feeding off of Stanag mags, being able to get it in 5.56 and 7.62. What was the inspiration for that idea? What was the driving force to bring that to market?
Well, this will bring it full circle. So I told you back in like 2012 or so when the Faxons were, toying with getting into this market. Bob tells his story a lot. He started going to shows, went to his first SHOT show. They really thought they were going to come out and just make ARs like everybody else. And he got out to SHOT his first time and was like, holy crap, it's saturated. And there's a lot of good
ARs
stuff.
out here. Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff. And so how are we going to be different? And remember, we also do defense work. And so he goes, we never want to go to the American warfighter and suggest the second best bomb. That isn't his thing.
Yeah.
So he comes home from SHOT Show, and he's watching the Discovery Channel top 10 battle rifles of all time. And it comes down to the AR-15 and the AK-47, and the AK wins out. And he didn't like that either. So I decided to that night on at his kitchen island with his sons. Dude. Yeah, then he just sat down and started drafting up the Arak. So the Arak does a few things. You're right. It's a long stroke gas piston operated system. It has user adjustable gas at the front. It has a non-reciprocating forward charging handle that could toolessly swap from left-hand side to right-hand side charging. You could also rotate the bolt, and it'll eject left or right-hand side. To do a caliber or barrel swap, it's just 6 captive screws on the lower handguard assembly. The little plate comes off. You pull the whole barrel assembly unit out. You throw the new one in, and then 6 screws, and you're off to the races. There's no barrel nuts. There's no nothing like that. And it uses a trunnion like an AK, but part of the patent is the trunnion is actually where your pivot pen goes on your lower receiver. So it actually helps kind of bring and marry everything together. And running a trunnion like that also gives us more real estate for feed ramps. So
Yes.
especially when you're working with 7.62, and because the ARAC itself drops on any mil-spec AR-15 lower, and so you got to deal with like mil-spec slop tolerances. And so even if you have a little bit of like a weird hang, you have a lower feed ramp geometry and also some more meat. I want to say it's like 20% larger bolt face on the lugs for it to catch catch the cartridge and put it up into the chamber. So there's a lot of like little knick-knacky stuff in there just from the engineering time and the machining time and working in the defense space and working in aerospace that were applied to the ARAC. The other thing is it's a monolithic rail. Actually, that whole upper receiver is monolithic. Back in the day, we used to do them from billet, and then we finally started making enough that we opened up an extrusion for them. And so it's all one piece, and we just mill it out. And it's not free floated either. So you actually have contact back at the front end, and then you have contact right at the end of the Picatinny rail where your gas adjustment is. The whole gas block basically and adjuster knob is wrapped up in the lower handguard plate and the upper receiver itself. So we have old videos of these like people blowing them up with tannerite and freezing them and bashing them against trees, and they'll hold their zero because it's an uninterrupted, unadulterated Picatinny rail all the way down.
Hmm.
We put hardened steel rails in the upper itself for the carrier to ride on. If you think about it, we're doing a steel carrier inside of an aluminum body actually doesn't really
Dangerous.
make sense, right? I mean,
Dangerous.
that's what ARs are, right? So it really takes a lot of things that you go, hey, if you started with this, the AR-15 will be a hard sell. Rear charging, you have to disengage with your weapon. Um, you have two different materials constantly mating with and contacting with each other, which is just not good metallurgically. It's not good for lubricity. It makes it very hard for it to run dirty in real battle applications. So those are some things that the ARAC answers. And it's a unique product. It's probably my most favorite thing to sell and my most favorite thing to take to range days for people, because it also, as part of its patent, has a dual recoil spring. So you'll see the ARAC on a lot of buffer tube setups, but that buffer tube is just holding furniture.
Okay.
All the reciprocating parts are in the upper. And so there's actually a dual recoil spring in there. Your first like 95% of travel, I want to say, is like maybe like 5 to 10 pounds. And then I think you jump to 12 at the detent, and then it goes up to 20 or something like that. But either way, it's a nonlinear recoil curve. And so it feels very soft shooting, even with a 7.62. It doesn't feel like a poppy kind of like aggressive hit into your shoulder. Kind of, to me, it's almost more like a down and in kind of feel when you're shooting. So it runs clean. It's unique. It eats up all different types of ammo. You could drop it on any mil-spec AR lower, and you're off to the races. We do also make the XRS, which is the full rifle or pistol version, and we do put a custom billet lower on that just kind of marries up the aesthetic lines a little better. Also has like a integrated trigger guard and a couple of other things. We're looking to do a Picatinny railback lower this year as a catalog offering because it can shoot folded. It doesn't need the buffer tube. So it's a pretty unique setup. And what's funny is we'll still get social comments like, "You guys still making those?" And because during the pandemic years, like we didn't really do a lot of them.
Yeah.
So at the time, the ARAC, it did not scale incredibly well, because that is something that, we don't do Swiss stuff in our shop, and we don't do injection molding or things like that. It's really all the hard
Right.
machining we do. And so there's not a whole lot of stuff that we could source, for the ARAC. We make the carrier, we make the bolt, we make the gas adjuster knobs, we make the trunnions. And so during the pandemic, when everybody wanted really bread and butter stuff, it kind of took a back seat. But then we did a couple years ago take some time to do some re-engineering to it to make it scale a little better. So make it a little quicker to manufacture, a little easier to assemble. For the manual of arms, it's always been a pretty easy platform to take apart, to clean. You could take the thing down with literally the tip of a 5.56 cartridge and an Allen key, and you could field strip the whole thing. But as far as like the actual manufacturing process and things like that, we've retooled over the last couple of years. So we officially relaunched them in Q4 of 2023. And we've been shipping them ever since, but demand has always outweighed supply. So one of the carousel images on our website, I put something up called the Arak Finder. And so it's just faxonfirearms.com/Arak Finder. And I literally just load in like gun.deals and wiki arms and stuff in there, and it just pulls up who has them. Because we ship them every month, all over the country, all over the world. So it's a very cool platform. And we do have some projects coming for it, for doing some more cartridge conversions for it, as well as its big brother. We're going to try to blow the dust off of the Arak 31, which we tried years ago, and never quite made it to market. So that'll be more like AR-10 style cartridges. So hopefully by like shot 27, you'll be seeing the 31, but hopefully later this year, you'll be seeing some more cartridge conversions for the standard Arak 21.
Sweet. That's sweet. So before we get into all the other things that we're missing right now, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back, guys.
When precision matters, every detail counts. The Frankfurt Arsenal IntelliDropper 2.0 takes accuracy to the next level with advanced sensors, a sleek touchscreen, and effortless calibration. Whether you're fine-tuning or loading in volume, the IntelliDropper 2.0 ensures confidence in every drop. Frankfurt Arsenal, precision starts here.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We are with Dustin from Faxon Firearms. And Dustin, I wanted to ask you, we've touched on the barrels, we've touched on the components like the gas blocks and the bolt carriers. We talked about the Arak. You offer a ton of other products. What are some of the products that we haven't touched on that you are most excited about or you hold dear to your heart?
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity to share it. Honestly, the main thing I'd talk about is I would encourage people to take a look at our suppressors. We announced at SHOT Show 25 that we'd be coming out with suppressors. We started launching them in the spring, and then we had subsequent launches in the summer and then in the fall. And unfortunately for us, but fortunately for the country, I think, was the fact that the tax stamps were going away. Or the payment on them, and what was going to be NFA, what wasn't going to be NFA. And so it was really kind of like we were super excited, and then it was like, in the summer, because people were like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
We're just going to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, it was great. And then during the fall, our third line for the suppressor lineup launched, and that was right during the government shutdown. So like we couldn't even tell the ATF that, like, we couldn't even finish filing the paperwork saying we made them.
Oh, no.
So people forget that, like, there's multiple forms. It's not just, for you, the end consumer. Like, we also have to do a form 2, I believe it is, and then
Form 3 to people like me.
Form 3 to people like you.
Yep.
And then we have a Form 2, then we have to do, a Form 2, your SOT and all that. We couldn't, we were in the queue. We had submitted everything. But we had a bunch of cans we couldn't do anything with. I had dealer back orders we couldn't ship because we couldn't, the paperwork wasn't going through. So it kind of put a little bit of a stunt in the growth. But and that's why people are like, hey, well, did you do this? And you send it to this influencer. It's like, okay, we're getting there. But they've actually taken off pretty well. But I would totally recommend folks going to faxonfirearms.com/suppressors. There's 3 lines currently. The 4th will be out in Q1. The first is the 22 can. It's like toucan, like the bird. We thought that was fun. But it's not just a rimfire can. It's a 22 cal modular suppressor. It's 417 stainless. And what's cool about it is it's modular and you can move the baffles around. We actually put tuning tips on the website that tell you like, hey, try your baffles like this if you're using this setup or you're trying to go for this signature or whatever. But it is full auto rated up to 22 mag and 5.7 out of a 5-inch barrel is our
Hell
only
yeah.
barrel restriction. So,
Wow.
so some people will say, you know, like, oh, it's a little heavy for rimfire cans. Well, it's not just a rimfire can. You know, we wanted to make sure that it can take a beating. So we basically went through the U.S. SOCOM test with a 22 suppressor. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Well,
Um,
it kind of does though now with everything. I know you're going to talk about the other ones, but
yeah.
you know, Matt and I have talked to a lot of guests about this. With the surge of suppressors, thanks to the $0 tax state, there's going to be a lot more people that normally wouldn't own a suppressor, owning a suppressor.
Mhm.
And with the not as equal, but the come up of SRTs and super safeties, the
Mhm.
days suppressor manufacturers saying, why does it matter if my can is full auto rated or not? You don't have full auto. And while those legal disclaimer, while those are not full automatic, they do shoot at a higher rate of speed. And
Yeah.
so these suppressors are now having to be engineered to take that.
Yeah, yeah, and also too for us too, it's a safety thing. I mean, listen, like we're not a huge staff. Like we're like 65 people, right? So like there are times where it's and that's all staff. That's shop. That's you know me and my sales team. I'm sales, marketing, and customer service. There's 6 of us, you know, total in my office. And so there are times, for better or worse, we're going out and helping test. And there was we at first had an aluminum extension tube on the toucan, and I, it didn't quite cut it. It was close, and by technicality, it passed. But towards the end, there it was like, oh, there it goes. Like it just wear out. You know, it
Right.
just wore out. And so yeah, we had to add a couple more ounces to the weight. But did I say 417 earlier? I'm stupid. It's 17.4 stainless, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's 17.4 stainless for both of those. And so yeah, it added a little bit of weight, but you could also go do 5.7 full auto. Like it'll be fine. Whatever you run through 22 mag or dirty rimfire, whatever, it's going to be good. So that's number one. The second one is the harmonics lineup. The harmonics line, we really wanted to bridge the gap between back pressure and excellent sound suppression, because generally there's a continuum, right? That the lower the back pressure, you know, generally the louder it is, but the higher the back pressure, generally quieter, but not as fun to shoot. Um, and so we really wanted to bridge that gap. And so we do have some of our testing data on the product pages for each caliber. But we also did take the harmonics to the Thunder Beast Silencer Summit. And on the 5.56, actually, the harmonics took number 2 overall
Nice.
on the mil spec rating, because and what's interesting about that is that, and we didn't know this because we had never made suppressors, you know, never really been part of it. Um, at the Thunder Beast Summit, which what I love about them is they're very open about how they do their testing, right? All
Yeah,
the data's there. I mean, it's just
they're so cool.
it's so deep, and it's free. They don't charge us to anybody to come
That's
out.
rad.
They give you all the data, and there's no secret squirrel,
Yeah,
none of this where you could stack the deck.
yeah, and everybody gets to talk to each other and find out what each other's doing, and there's no worry because it's like, well, I've already invented this and I'm already bringing
Right.
this to market.
Yeah.
So even if you copy it, you're going to be a year out. So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. And so but what was interesting about that 5.56 lineup was they don't put you in weight classes. Like so the only can that beat us on that rating, and there's a whole bunch of things you could take first to 102nd on, but on that standard mil spec, I think it was like that stereo rating at shooter's ear. Um, the only one that beat us was a B&T can that I'm pretty sure was like 4 times the size. Like the thing was giant. So those are things that people have to take into consideration, is your overall volume that you're working with. So that was very cool. We do those in two different versions. We do a Sentry harmonics, which is Haynes 282, the super alloy, high nickel based content. And it's very, very similar to Inconel as far as the super alloy is concerned. And then we also do it in a grade 5 titanium. The grade 5 titanium version is like 7 ounces. It's like 7.5 ounces, the full can. But the Haynes is like double that. So we gave people the choice because technically the titanium can pass the SOCOM test, but titanium degrades. And so that initial blast baffle can degrade over time. So it technically made it through the end of life cycle for the SOCOM test. But if you're really going to be going out and you're shooting full auto Win Mag or something every weekend, like maybe go ahead and get the Haynes. That it'll be a better setup for you. But if you're doing normal usage, titanium is a great option. So we give folks the option on that. And then one that I think is the most unique and hasn't gotten as much pomp and circumstance yet because it did launch during the shutdown is our Core Sync series. So the Core Sync is cool because it takes a 17.4 traditionally manufactured body. And even though it took a little while to get it all figured out with the ATF, it is a true multi-cal marked can. And so you could either buy it standard as a 30, 36, or a dedicated 5.56, but in it is a Haynes 282 3D printed core that comes out for cleaning. It actually has a 1/2-inch drive, so if you get carbon locked in there, you just shove your socket wrench in it and you could crank it out. And we printed a little, like, we in the office we call them windshield wipers, but so it just scrapes out the carbon as you're pulling it out. But you could also buy a multi-cal kit, and so under one transfer you get one can, 3 cores, 3 end caps, and 3 direct thread mounts.
Wow.
And so that one is the newest one. We were hoping that during the big beautiful bill that baffles would have come off of the NFA, but they sadly did not, because the hope was to be able to just sell the individual cores. So you buy your suppressor the one time and then you could just get a core upgrade kit, because there's more stuff we could do with it. We want to be able to have cores that are, hey, maybe you're not so worried about overall suppression. You just want as low back pressure as possible and take the edge off. Well, there's a core for that. If there's one that you're doing a bolt gun setup and you don't give a rip about back pressure, you just want it as quiet as possible, and we can make a core for that. So that was kind of the idea with the Core Sync, and then also to bridge that gap of user serviceability versus all the high tech that additive manufacturing could provide to suppressors. That's something we noticed at SHOT Show when we came out and we were showing our first prototypes. There's a whole cast of people that were so down with fully 3D printed cans, and a whole other group of people that are like, if I can't take it apart, I don't even want to look at it. They want to be able to take them apart and clean them and do all this sort of stuff. So the harmonics lineup, that core structure is basically what's in the Core Sync. It's just in a 17.4 outer shell that is a little more user serviceable. So
that's cool that you're able to swap cores on that.
That is cool.
Yeah. We made sure that the ID and the OD of all the cores were the same to accommodate up to that 36 cal. So you could just literally swap them in, and we print the caliber on each of the cores and put arrows so you know which way projectiles need to go.
It's just crazy because still under the letter of the law right now, unless you're an SOT, you're not allowed to replace the wipe in your suppressor.
Correct.
And being able to swap baffles, like, that's really cool. So
yeah, as long as you do it under one transfer and it all comes together as that kit, it's that's what it is. So we just put it on. We were holding out. We were really hoping we could do the cores individual, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So, and then we have a few more coming in the that we should have prototypes for at SHOT Show. One that is very cool that I think is going to answer the question about titanium degradation on that initial blast baffle. So we'll be teasing that out there. And then one we teased earlier in the year, our Basilisk, which is a tri-lobe design. And kind of the hang up with that was us trying to figure out a unique mounting system for it because it does need to be timed. That we wanted a mount that wasn't cumbersome, that wasn't giant, that didn't copy anybody else's IP. And so we just ran through, I think, the first 2 or 3 kind of final prototypes of that QD mount. And that mount is going to be sick. Just even outside of the Basilisk suppressor, it'll be good for anybody who's doing that Plan B or hub style. But it's so funny. Like, we were playing with it in my office, and like the prototype I had, you just literally like twist. It's like a quarter turn, and that thing's just on there. But there's no like feedback. So I'm like, is this thing on? So we're actually going to like add like a little ratcheting feature to it just so it feels like you're doing something. Because I was like, this feels like, and then I'm like, pulling it and like just making sure I wasn't stupid. And they're like, no, it's on. We got you. And so we're actually, and I can't remember which piece it is, but one of our newer engineers, he actually took something that is a design that is used in tool holdings on CNC machines, and he basically applied that to a suppressor mount. So that'll be pretty cool. We'll be showing that off at the show as well.
Right on. Dustin, outside of suppressors, I mean, it sounds like you guys have not just a suppressor, but actually a fully developed line of suppressors with a couple different options for, a couple different shooters and a couple different weapon systems. So
Mm-hmm.
outside of barrels and suppressors, what Faxon products do you think are slept on? What do you think people are
Oh, that's a
missing?
good question. Oh, what is slept on? Um, I would really encourage people to look at the bolt action lineup, even
Hmm.
just for the barrels. So we launched our FX7 line in the fall of 2023, and to be honest with you, it was we knew there was going to be some spin up for it. Not everybody thinks of us for that, kind of stuff. 8.6 kind of threw us into it. And actually, about 30% of our business is contract OEM. And we've made bolt action stuff for other companies for years. But we wanted to do something that was truly our own. And the FX7 is on the Remington 700 short action footprint. So you do have that kind of as close to an AR-15 type modularity as you could get in the bolt action world. But we really wanted to apply our machining and our ethos to it. You asked me at the beginning about like what we offer, what we want to offer to the end consumer. Part of that on the sales and marketing side is a high value proposition. We are not a bargain basement brand, but the way I put it is we generally don't make you refinance your house to buy our stuff. And you could still get a quality American manufactured product from us without totally breaking the bank. And the FX7 I think really does that. So the action itself is a 416 body and a 4340 bolt. Those come in as raw stock. Nobody's broaching them for us. Nobody's like pre-machining the bolt. I think we've switched back and forth a couple of times, but one piece comes in as round stock, one piece comes in as square stock or rectangle stock billet, and then it's all machined in house. We have a unique 6-lug design on our bolt, which helps with feeding. It helps with lockup on that bolt stop, but it also provides more contact surface with the ID of the action. And so it makes a really unique feel operating and cycling the weapon. And then some people, we didn't even call it out as a feature at first. But like even when you put the charging handle into battery, when you're locking down the bolt, it's machined in such a way that you kind of get a little, it just kind of clicks in. You kind of get this like, and you can almost kind of just, click her down and then she goes in. So it's just machined that tight to go with it. And then it has a 20 MOA pick rail. And I believe it's a 60-degree throw on the bolt handle. And so what we did was we were able to get in the matte DLC version. Armor Loop does that coding for us with their patented DLC. You're only at like $8.99 MSRP with all those features.
That's not.
And then we do a high polish DLC, which is only $100 more. And so you could get into a barreled action from us that's $1,100, $1,200 MSRP, American made, lifetime guarantee. And we do several barrel profiles for it. And I will say, full transparency, we weren't making our own stocks or chassis, and so and we love the MDT stuff. We partnered with them on one. We did we do one with Magpul. There you go. But our value is in the stuff that we make. And
Yes.
so so we do a lot of barreled actions. That would be something I would encourage people to give a try. And I've noticed that that segment of the market has its own little idiosyncrasies. We're in this, in ARs, people are like, oh my God, how light can you make it? We have our ion line and it's like also 5 pounds. And then like I'm pulling out, one of our FX7s with an M24 profile barrel on it. And we were down doing an event for the CMP and somebody from the Army precision shooting team or something was like, let's make them any heavier. I was like, good Lord, brother.
You say that
Let me get this in 30 pounds.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
It's two different schools.
It is.
So
it is.
You get your sport shooters and your hunters, and they want that thing. I mean, they want it 2 pounds if they could get it 2 pounds.
Exactly.
And then you get your PRS guys who don't want any muzzle rise and they don't want this thing to move at all. And they want the stock and they want everything to eat this recoil. So it's like, if it isn't 30 pounds, I don't want it.
Right.
And the middle ground, there's a lot of people in the middle ground that's willing to compromise. Say, I don't quite want it 30, but I do want some of those recoil benefits. So, 12 to 14, I'm happy. A little heavier, I better not walk very far if I'm going to shoot it. But I mean, it's really that common ground. You've got this side yelling at you, this side yelling at you, and then people like middle, like this one. I think this one's like 12 pounds, but I've got one that's like 24 pounds, and then I've got one that's I don't care.
Yeah, and that's something we've learned. I think ours kind of bridges that. I mean, we wanted to be able to build up a full one on a co-branded MDT chassis that we did with them that kept it under the production class cash category for PRS. So that was kind of like the first barrier that we worked through. But I'm telling you, the bolt actions, like on the barrels, and I get it, people, they love their cut rifled stuff. They love I get it. I'm just telling you, I've not had somebody come back to me, with one of our bolt action barrels and be like, nah, this ain't it. And they're, they're really, I think, respectably priced. They go through all the same quality operations that we do here in house. We also add honing and lapping operations to them. So also that was another thing we had to learn about, especially the PRS crowd. Those guys will be like, I don't care if your barrel's rated for 50 rounds. If you could guarantee me 50 rounds at this minute of angle, I'll swap it every 50 rounds.
Yeah.
Right. But and we're used to this kind of long lifespan, 20, 30, 40,000 rounds. And it's like, so there's part of me that is always like, hey, just give it a try. Just give it a try. And if you don't like it, and pretty much everybody we sent them to, really, really likes them. But that is it's a very different market. And we sell, enough that I don't have any in stock right now. It's not like that, but and some of that's on us. We need to, and we have been, actually the past 6 months, we've been dropping machines on the floor. It feels like every other week. I'm very excited about the next year, with that. But the FX7s, so we do need to add some more bolt bases. Those are coming out this year. We'll be showing those off at SHOT, add some short mag options, add a Grendel bolt to it as well for all that type of stuff. 223 bolts, so you can do 300 blackout junk, whatever you'd like to do. But I would tell folks take a look at those items. We've been doing it for a long time. We could make barrels and have made barrels for just about anything. Just because you haven't seen it on our catalog for a decade plus, doesn't mean that we don't do it well. So I would definitely encourage people to take a look at that.
So I guess how much, because you guys have built a client base, how much of shooter feedback actually makes it into your product revisions? Because I know all you guys are shooters too. So you're going to go out and do the testing, and you're going to do the things where like, I'd like to change this. But have you guys ever made things, not even necessarily a revision, but have you guys made things based off of what, the shooters you value are asking for?
Yeah, good question. Generally, at least once a year, we put out a big survey to all of our customers on our mailing list. And we actually have a pretty sizable mailing list for our size of company. We're at about 2.5, 2.6 million email subscribers with
Nice.
and it's a live open rate, so it's always weird when I say it, but we float anywhere between like a 48 to a 64% open rate. So we have a pretty engaged audience.
Nice.
And so we'll put out a couple of surveys a year, and we'll ask people, hey, what are you looking for in this? Hey, if we add more like pistol barrels to the lineup outside of Glock, Sig, and M&P, what are you interested in? So there are a lot of things that go into that. Some stuff it'll even come back through customer service. If we need to make a rev change, even on a tolerance on a pistol barrel or whatever. So we basically bring all of that stuff in every week through customer service tickets, and two guys in my office do a summary. So one is kind of a high overview, and then Martin, who's kind of like the brain cell in my office, he'll go through and do the more targeted one and really kind of put it down to like, hey, quality or engineering, we need to look at this. So for example, I think it was last year, because we had gotten to the point where we were doing such a high volume of pistol barrels, we started broach rifling them. Which broach rifling is a kind of cool process, but we just started to see too many inconsistencies, from batch to batch. We were seeing some weird, like we weren't getting as controlled of rifling as we wanted. And so we switched.
Huh.
We the broach machines are back in the boneyard in the shop. We're not doing that anymore. So we do take that feedback pretty seriously. And we do kind of keep a ticker going of product requests. We also about quarterly will go into the back end of our website and pull up the top searches that yielded no results. So if it wasn't listed on the website, like what are people looking for? So we try to flush all of that through. And then at the same time, I do the same thing with our manufacturers reps that are out in the field and the dealers. And those guys will take surveys, and a lot of them just have an open line to us. And so they could get to us. Like when 22 ARC came out, we had a bigger dealer that was like, hey, I know 16-inch barrel doesn't really make a lot of sense for the ballistics of this cartridge. He goes, but my customers are going to want a 16-inch barrel. And so we're like, okay, well, if we feel we can make it reasonably accurate and safe, we'll do it. And so we did. And so yeah, we do take that seriously. Not everything gets through.
AK barrels.
Yeah, AK barrels, yeah, stuff like that. We've been asked about. We just got to be able to see a market and a use case for it. Is it going to be enough to? Because you'll get all the guys at all the shows that are, what you should do.
Yeah, it's like and I'm gonna make that thing, and you won't ever buy it.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm sure we'll sell tens of them. It was going to be sick. So it really depends, but we do try to take that as seriously as possible. And case in point was, like I said, that 12.5-inch 6 arc. I cut it 2 years ago because it was crap. It wasn't selling. It shot just fine, but it wasn't selling. Well, now the tides have turned and everybody's asking for it, so it's back on the catalog this year.
Well, I think it's about that time, Mikey.
I think it's that time. Go ahead.
Dustin, I don't know if you are a fan of the show, but at the end of every show, we like to ask our guests the same question, Because at the end of the day, we're all just gun guys here, sitting around BSing, talking about our hobby, and we all kind of judge each other based on our tastes a little bit. So I
Mm.
like to ask top 5 guns. This is a Dustin question. This isn't a
Oh
Faxon
gosh.
question.
Okay.
NFA doesn't matter. It's not the
Okay.
zombie apocalypse or World War III, anything like that. But you got to cover all the types of shooting that you like to do with only 5 guns. So, Dustin,
Oh
you got
gosh.
5 guns. What are you taking with you?
I'm sure if my guys listen to this after I record it, they like to make fun of me
They're gonna
because I'm such a hillbilly when it comes to shooting. All of my shooting growing up, like my grandmother ran a campground, and like when the season was over, we'd go back to the burn pile and just shoot the crap that people left there. Like
And
that's fun shooting to me. You know what I mean? They're
America.
out there with their spotting scopes and like, well, if you just do it like turn the windage, and I'm like, golly, just give me that thing and let's shoot the car. You know.
give a
Um,
Sorry.
okay, so some of these are just going to be because they're near and dear to my heart, not necessarily me saying this is a great gun. I was very excited to see that Ruger's coming back out with the red label. That was like one of the first shotguns I remember shooting with my family. I just have good memories with that gun. So the Ruger red label's up there for me. I think the first AR I ever shot was an old school Russian SKS. The first time that the Clinton assault weapon ban came down, my family went out and bought SKSs before all that went through. So I remember shooting an SKS, and so that one is pretty near and dear to me as well.
Oh, yeah.
Not to be a homer, but I really do love the Arak. That is just something that is so fun to shoot. And we did a whole event with the Midway USA Foundation this year, where they kind of did a fantasy camp with us, and all these donors came out and built their own ARACs and stuff, and just kind of knowing everything that goes into it, as well as how it performs. That one's pretty high up there for me. Let's see. So that's 3. I will get made fun of for this, but just because it was my first concealed carry gun, the LCP, first gen
There
LCP,
you go.
the 380. That one's a pretty near and dear one to my heart. Let me think. What would be my 5th? Probably the 5th, because this was the first gun I bought working at Faxon, was our Patriot pistol, the FX19 Patriot. And the Patriot is actually coming back. The FX19 line is coming back this year. Polymer 80 used to make our frames. I don't know if you guys knew this. Polymer 80 isn't around anymore. So we had to, yeah, I don't know. Breaking news. Breaking news. But so we had to go back through and we had to redesign the grip, and we had to find another injection molder and blah, 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 blah. And we had some revisions we needed to make. But the Patriot, I remember it was like probably like 8 weeks into working at Faxon, and I was like, okay, this is the one I want.
I'm gonna have one of these.
So I gotta have one of those. So I'm excited for the Gen 2s to be coming out this year as well.
Right on. I think that's a first on the show for the SKS and the LCP. So
Yeah, don't hate. When listen,
I got
I was
an
poor.
SKS on my wall over here. I love
Yeah,
the SKS.
the LCP I get so much crap for. I was like, listen, man, like we didn't have much. We were just married. I had like no money.
We were all
I
new
got a
one
great
time.
deal, and I was like, this thing is slick with the pocket holster, just true hillbilly stuff.
Goes
So
right in my
bless,
pocket.
bless up, Ruger. Yeah, yeah. Friend of the pod, Ruger. Friend of the pod.
There you go. So, Dustin, before we close out, we want you to go ahead and take the time for everyone still listening and plug where they can find Faxon.
Sure thing. So obviously FaxonFirearms.com is pretty much where everything is. But you can follow us on most social platforms at Faxon Firearms. And then on X, I believe it's at Faxon_Firearms. So give those a like and a follow. So any of the platforms at Faxon Firearms. And then at FaxonFirearms.com, you can find pretty much all of our products, our dealer locator. If you do have questions, comments, check those things out. We have a pretty good loyalty program on the website as well. So I'd encourage you to check those things out. And then we're in all your other favorite spots. So, we're at SHOT, we'll be at Goals, we'll be at NRA, we'll be at all those things. So please feel free to come by the booths and say hey.
Awesome. Well, Dustin, we want to thank you again very much for joining us on Whiskey and Windage. It's been a great talk. All the people still listening, go ahead, like, share, comment down below if you got questions for Dustin or the Faxon team. You can leave them down below. We'll make sure that it gets over to him and his team for you. On behalf of Dustin, Mike, and myself, thanks for watching Whiskey and Windage. We'll catch y'all next week.